Springtime. Love it.
Me too, Governor. Your Ben Jarofsky Show for Tuesday, May, 18th.
Yes, sir.
Is just moments away. How we doing, everybody? Live stream chat. Terry, Joan, Doogie. What's going on? Your Ben Jarofsky Show is just moments away. But before we do this, we need to thank our sponsors. Sponsors like SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana.
Springtime. Love it.
The Chicago Federation of Labor are sponsors.
Springtime. Love it.
And, of course, today's Ben Jarofsky Show is brought to you by the Chicago Reader. ChicagoReader.com for all things there is to know the city of Chicago. Where to go, what to do, what to eat, what to drink, what to smoke, how to think politically, and so much more. ChicagoReader.com. And subscribe to the Reader. And if you go to the website, ChicagoReader.com, become a binhead. ChicagoReader.com/Jarofsky, Jorav as in victory, SKY. Not only will you find, Jay Marie, what's happening? Not only will you find our endless archive of Ben Jarofsky shows, over 1,000 episodes, you'll also have information on how to become a binhead. That's what we call avid listeners of this show. You can either be in the alley, the avenue, or the boulevard. Become a binhead. Support the Ben Jarofsky Show. Ben, you got a text. Everything good?
Yes, it was. Well, everything's good. It's our guest, Delmarie Cobb, texting me. She still hasn't gotten the email invite. I'm shattering the fourth wall here and letting folks know just how complicated it is to do these daily hookups with guests. You would think it would be easy, but no, it's not. We have a whole staff of like dozens of people working on these things.
Now you're really breaking the fourth wall. All right.
Yeah,
you're going a little too far. Don't talk about that big staff we have, please.
Anyway, that was that text was, where's the email invite?
All right, I'm resending it now. Right. I may have put a .com rather than a .net. That may have been it.
Okay.
But hey, the Ben Jarofsky Show starts now. It is Tuesday, May 18th, and live from my apartment and his attic, this is the Ben Jarofsky Show. Today on the program, Alderman David Moore and the return of political strategist Delmarie Cobb. And now your host. I resent the email. Chicago Reader columnist Ben Jarofsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Jarofsky here. We're calling this Welfare for Me Tuesday. And here's why. Good weekend. You have a good weekend, D?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Very good.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to let too much of the cat out of too much of the bag. But Dr. D's on a roll these days. We're just going to leave it right there. His apartment's looking awesome. He's got it all set up. He's got like this soundproofing stuff that up there, making it look like a real professional setting.
I spent all weekend soundproofing this little closet I'm in.
And then it was just blown by the brown line. Roaring.
Yeah! Damn you, China!
Damn you, China. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, I had a great weekend. Watched Mayor of Easttown. I'm obsessed with that show. It's on HBO. Discovered, I wrote about it last week for the Reader, my Reader newsletter, and discovered I misspelled Easttown. Oops.
Oh, boy. Don't you hate when that happens?
I was looking for anybody I could find to blame it on. You know what I mean? To shift the result.
Yeah.
For a while, I thought about throwing you under the bus.
I was going to say, I'm not there. That's not on me for once.
I go, it's my producer, Dennis. But then I just could not, as creative as I am, could not think of any way where I could just shift the blame to you. So
well, that's like the writing version of mispronouncing Maya Dukmasova.
Yes, it is. No, it's worse. That one is. I'm sorry, man. Who knew it had two T's? I didn't know. Anyway, what else? Got a wonderful email from Joan, listener, mother of William Horberg, and it really made my day, Joan. Your email, that sweet email you sent me this morning, and it came with a story, Queen's Gambit being turned into a musical. I didn't know this, D, until I read this article. Like musical Queen's Gambit. Now, look, I love Queen's Gambit as much as the next guy, but a musical. My first thought was, I'm not seeing it. But Joan, I've been thinking about it. I think it could make a good meal. The key is you got to have some snappy tunes, obviously. But the whole thing about Queen's Gambit, what made it so successful, in my humble opinion, was that just the way they integrated all the different aspects of the story, including the look, that early 60s look that is very popular. I think if you can convey that look, that feel, that sense of great possibilities just beyond the horizon with the turn of the decade and new president in the White House, et cetera, and so forth, I'm just saying, could make a good musical. Anyway, I woke today to discover the world is madness, folks, utter madness, not just the insane onslaught in Israel and Palestine. I urge everyone to check out the David Ferris interview that we dropped this weekend. Fascinating interview with David Ferris. He really does a great job of just breaking that down. But also, Republicans gearing up to take away abortion rights once and for all. Yes, the Supreme Court is going to be hearing a case coming out of Mississippi. Essentially, it's just going to do away with abortion rights in this country. And I was reading that article, ladies and gentlemen. At the same time, I was thinking about the footage I saw. Watch this footage of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene wandering through the halls of Congress looking for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to just what? Give grief to? Assail and assault? You know, just a little background. Marjorie Taylor Greene, at the time she was wandering through halls in this footage, was not Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was private citizen. It was, I think, 2019. AOC had just was emerging as being like a national celebrity from the left, the new voice, the new face of the Democratic left. And so Marjorie Taylor Greene and about 3 of her cohorts were wandering through Congress looking for her so they could just lambast her, confront her, give her grief, like she did with David Hogue. She had this thing, like she would go up to people. She goes up to people, just confronts them, gets in their face. You know, what, are you afraid? And then when the people walk away because she's like a lunatic, what, are you afraid? It's like very bizarre behavior. She gets away with it. It's got her far in the world. So I guess that's why she's continuing it. Anyway, so she and her cohorts are walking through the halls of Congress looking for AOC's office, and they're going on and on about the killing of unborn babies in New York. They're foes of abortion rights. And I'm watching this, and I'm thinking how much they love Donald Trump. And he was president at the time. They talked about how much they loved him. And I'm thinking, Margie, how many abortions do you think Donald Trump has paid for? No, I mean, I think this is a legitimate question. I mean, he always bragged about having unlimited, unprotected sex throughout the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s. He was doing it right into the 21st century with the stripper. So you got to figure. I'm just saying odds. Odds are at some point, Margie, at some point along the way, Donald Trump must have gotten some woman pregnant, maybe more than one. Maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know. But just the odds are such. The man was bragging about unlimited, unprotected sex. So sooner or later, he's going to get a woman pregnant. So what do you think? How many abortions, huh? Just saying. You're against abortion. You believe that life is sacred at all stages, even from the earliest moment of conception. And yet, you worship Donald Trump. A man who brags about having unprotected, unlimited sex. So just saying, if you're going to give AOC grief because New York allows women to get abortions, aren't you even going to think about the abortions that your leader, the man you love, has had?
I'm not a doctor.
No, he's not a doctor. So he's not the one doing the abortions, but he's the one paying for them. Unless he's so cheap. There's always this possibility, Marjorie. He's so cheap that he tells the woman, go get the abortion and bill me. And then he doesn't pay the bill. He's known to do that. Just saying, he's known to do that. You know, like when he hires a contractor and he agrees, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pay you $1 million to fix this building. Okay. Then the contractor comes in. Well, I fixed it. Here's the bill. Oh, I don't have the money. I'll pay you $100,000. If you don't like it, see me in court. So he could, may have stiffed some women on his promise to pay for the abortion. Anyway, that's what I was thinking as I was watching Marjorie Taylor Greene wandering through the halls of Congress looking for AOC to give her grief. Madness, folks. The vote count in Arizona continues. Talk about lunacy. The whole strategy is based on the fraudulent claim that there was cheating in the presidential election. So Republicans have instigated a recount a recount and a recount. It's insane. They're like the pavilion that they were having the recount in, they can't even have access to anymore. They've been in there so long, so they're going to have to stall the recount. By the way, there already was an official recount in Arizona. So they're just recounting and recounting and recounting because Donald Trump said the election was stolen from him. So Republicans are determined to prove that something that didn't happen actually happened. They can't just say, openly acknowledge that Donald Trump lost and Joe Biden won. No, they got to have the recount. And now Republican state officials in Arizona are saying enough's enough already. You're making us look like lunatics. You're firing up unstable people who are making threats. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene wandering through the halls of Congress looking for AOC to get in her face. You're undermining democracy. No, got to keep counting and recounting and counting again because, you know, Donald Trump says he really won. And if Donnie says it must be true, well, it must be true because he's our exalted leader. What else? Mask rules coming down. Dee and I were talking about this morning. It's time for me, Dennis. We'll probably be doing a whole riff on this on What a Week. I could see it coming. It's time for me to move on and get used to a world without masks. And I have to tell you, Dennis, I'm having trouble with this. I'm just being open and honest. I'm having trouble.
Oh.
I'm struggling with it. Last night at bowling, guy showed up really drunk. I'm not naming names. I'm just gonna.
And it wasn't me.
It wasn't Dennis. Oh my God, your name is still on our bowling. Ladies and gentlemen,
Cool.
Dennis was a backup bowler on my bowling team about 3 years ago. And then he stopped coming because, I don't know, Ben, I'm very busy and this is quite.
Yeah, acting like a pandemic didn't happen. Cool. Go ahead.
This is such an imposition. And I'm a busy guy, Ben. And hold on. Oh, I have a very important phone call coming in. Anyway, but Dennis, your name, Denny Mandingo, is still on the sheet.
That was my name. That was my name.
It's still there. I'm like, you know, Bob, you might take his name off the sheet. I don't think he's coming back. The guy's got a good life. He doesn't even live in the neighborhood anymore.
He liked me. Bob liked me.
Hey, that dickhead. He'll be back.
Bob's one of these guys, you know, he's got the mask on, but he doesn't put it over his face. But he's still wait. I think Bob likes it like the ascot look. You know, like we're all like struggling with the whole like, taking the mask off. So Bob's thing is he's going to keep the mask around his neck. Bob, it's very important to protect the neck with that mask. Okay, so it's, you know, a lot of studies have shown that the virus has been passed through the neck. I've still got my mask on, D. So this drunk guy comes up to me. I'm not going to name names. Hey, how you doing, Betty? He's really drunk. He's like right in my face. And I realized one of the things I really liked about the pandemic, you know, I know that sounds weird. Like you like the thing about the pandemic. But one of the few things I liked about the pandemic, I think I could do a list. I think I might do a reader list. Like things I actually liked about the pandemic.
Just spell all the words right, please.
Touche. Easttown. I will now show you. I know how to spell Easttown. Easttown. E-A-S-T-T-O-W-N. See, D, there's 2 T's. Nobody told me that.
And 2 C's and vaccinated, all right? Just remember that.
Anyway, so this guy gets in my face. He's so drunk. How you doing? I'm like, could you just like, I don't know, can we go back to the whole 6 feet thing with you, dude? You're like literally in my face. I got vaccinated. I want to see my card. So he showed me his card. Yeah, he was vaccinated. Of course, it could be a manufactured card. You know,
Oh, my God.
They're selling those on the internet. You didn't know that, did you, D? You didn't know that, man. By the way, I've been doing a lot of internet research. I overcame my fear about taking the deep dive into Mayor Lightfoot's the hacked emails.
Wait, you went on the dark web?
I'm on the. We're gonna have a dark Webian guy on the show. Yeah, I didn't tell you that.
This show's getting hacked in about 2 weeks.
We had a great pre-show production meeting, which was mostly Dennis and I talking about basketball, none of which we're going to use on the show. Got to really got to do a better job, Dennis, of being more productive on our pre-show production meetings instead of me going, gee, man, you going to watch the game Wednesday? Anyway, I booked Freddie Martinez. He's going to come on the show. He's a real deep web, dark web guy. And Tommy Schuba will be coming on the show. I'm happy to say Alderman David Moore is here. We're going to bring him on in a little bit. Alderman David Moore, the pride and joy of the 17th Ward, candidate for Secretary of State, proud graduate of Simeon High School, and graduate of Western Illinois University. Is that unbelievable? I'm doing this, folks. I don't have a script. I'm just reciting this. David Moore's like, God damn, this guy is good.
Kitty, I am.
David Moore, who once spent 2 hours driving me around the 17th Ward. God bless him. He's like, I'll bet I'll show you the 17th Ward. Those are the days. Father Flager was full glory, but we'll hold off on that story for another time. Anyway, I want to just close by talking. This is actually, I want David Moore to hear what I'm going to say. We're going to take a break, and then I'll get his comments on this. David Moore running for Secretary of State. And I understand Secretary of State is not an office that deals with, like, I don't know, tax issues per se, but I'd love to hear his opinion of this. This story was in today's Sun-Times. 2 candidates, Republicans, running for governor. They wanted to unseat J.B. Pritzker. A gentleman named State Senator Darren Bailey. Everybody who listens to the Ben Joravsky Show know who's Darren Bailey is. DB, the big fella from downstate. We talk about him all the time. And Gary Rabin, the businessman who's made a fortune in a paving company. I think I just lost David Moore.
Yeah.
Wow. You scared him off.
Don't talk gubernatorial politics. Okay, there we go.
There he comes. He's right back, David Moore. Got a little nervous here, David. Anyway, so Gary Rabin and Darren Bailey have this notion. They want Governor Pritzker to reject federal money that would go to unemployed people, $300 a week. They say it's a disincentive from working. And that this is the reason that jobs are going unfilled. So they want the governor to turn it down. 18 Republican governors throughout the country are turning them down. They used to, some of these same Republican governors were the ones who turned down Obamacare aid for Medicaid patients too. And the notion is that somehow or other, like it's a disincentive if you help people who have no job so they can pay their basic bills. And you know what? I'm listening. I'm so old. I remember Ronald Reagan and the anecdotes he told about food stamps and some welfare lady buying liquor. David Moore is too young. He doesn't remember this, but I'm older than David Moore. I remember these anecdotes. It's like nothing ever changes. You know what? I just want to say, how come it's a disincentive when you help someone directly who needs assistance? That's a disincentive in the minds of the Rabins of the world and the DB, Darren Baileys of the world. But it's like sound economic strategies when you give a gazillionaire a tax break. They always tell you, Ben, if you give a gazillionaire a tax break, what he'll do, is he'll use those dollars to buy a yacht. Follow me on this, Ben. He'll buy the yacht, and then the yacht company will be able to hire a guy to mop the floor. And in that way, that tax break will work its way down to the Auburn Gresham community, where David Moore is the alderman. That's sound economic policies, Ben. And I'm like, why don't you just give the $300 to the unemployed guy at Auburn Gresham and save the middleman with the yacht? Oh, come on, Ben. That's welfare. We can't tolerate welfare in our society. Meanwhile, Darren Bailey, he's a farmer. He's getting farm subsidies. Yeah, Danny Mahopoulos, WBEZ. Check it out. You don't believe me? Go check it out. He's getting farm subsidies.
That is correct.
I have no problem helping farmers get through hard times. Absolutely no problem doing it. But some people call that welfare. I don't call that because I believe in helping people when times are hard. But come on, Darren. You got a weird notion. Your notion is welfare for me, but not for thee. We got a great show today, everybody. As I said, Alderman David Moore is here, Alderman of the 17th Ward, candidate for Secretary of State, and Delmarie Cobb, the good friend of the show, good friend of mine. I've known her for years, political strategist extraordinaire. She'll be joining us after I'm done interviewing David Moore. So plenty of political talk ahead. I may ask David Moore for his thoughts on this Rabin DB Darren Bailey thing. We're going to take a brief break, and when we return, the great David Moore will be with us. Stick around, everybody.
Let us pray.
I wanna be a centrist, whatever it takes. Don't blame me, it's the only way.
Let us pray.
When you're the one to disagree, we've got a plan all wrapped up in the bag, and we send you a summary. I wanna be a centrist. I wanna be extremely moderate. And when I get down like Solomon, I cut the baby in half. I wanna get real Aristotelian and hit that sweet spot right in the median. Who's to say what's true anyway? I wanna be a centrist, whatever it takes. I wanna be a centrist, whatever it takes. I wanna be a centrist, whatever it takes.
Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from his attic.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Ben Joravsky here with me. Alderman David Moore, 17th Ward, and candidate for Secretary of State. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ben. It's always good seeing you. And yeah, we was out there for about 2 hours driving around. We were
As I recall, and we will not belabor this, but it was a TIFF story that got me there. And we drove around I think you sat behind, you said, Ben, let me drive your car. It was my car and you were driving, and you showed me, you took me every corner, in and out, and we were going through alleys, and it's quite a day. I was getting a firsthand view of the 17th Ward. And in my humble opinion, the inequities of our tax increment financing program, which I will not take the deep dive into, but man, This is a program that's supposed to help wards like the 17th and not be squandered in gentrifying neighborhoods that don't need it. But David, that's neither here nor there. You're running for Secretary of State in the state of Illinois. I want to get into some Chicago issues. But before we do that, why don't you tell folks why you decided you wanted to run for Secretary of State, what you hope to achieve with this. So go ahead.
Absolutely. First of all, it's a servant seat. It's a nonpartisan seat where you have to serve everybody, and regardless of race, religion, party, or whatever, you have to serve everyone. And everyone knows that in Chicago, I have a servant's heart. But part of that servant's heart is that you have to be transparent. Everything that I've done has been transparent, and I believe also that you and I believe equity in hiring and contracting and services provided, and that's an office that provides services to all walks of life, and you have to be consistent and provide that good service. And so that's one of the reasons. The other reason is because I see that seat as the voice of the young people. Secretary White, as you all know, has been a great ambassador for Illinois. He has been a great servant and has led that office with great character and integrity. And I'm not telling you what I'm going to do. That's what I have done as an alderman. And everybody in the city council can attest to that. People that I've worked with throughout the city and throughout the state can attest to that. And that's what I want to be. I want to be that shining example for young people, as I do as an alderman, giving them access, giving them a seat at the table, and giving them that voice. And so I want to continue to do that, but also use my my expertise in accounting. I had a dual degree in accounting and operations management. I spent about close to 15 years in the combination of the private and public sector, working for Fortune 500 companies, doing accounting. And so understanding opportunity costs, understanding ways to generate revenue, and so I can use my accounting and my operations background, my whole business background, to make that office more effective, even more effective. So I just want to build on the legacy of Secretary White. There's an old saying I learned in college when I was taking quality management, and it came from Jaron Ishikawa, a guru. He said, "If it ain't broke, break it." Find out why it's not breaking and improve on it. And that's what this is all about. Again, Secretary White has done a good job, and there's always room for elevation. And when you're standing on somebody's shoulders like a Secretary White, you better be able to look farther and do even better. So that's why I'm running.
All right. That was quite a riff. It gave me a lot to respond to. A couple things. I'll get to the Secretary White example, but let's just talk about the transparency. A little stumble last week with the Facebook situation, and we talked about it on the show. I would urge you, whatever Delmarie Cobb tells you to do, you should always do what Delmarie says, okay? I've learned that from my life dealing with Delmarie Cobb. And she's smiling because she's up next. So you got in a little bit of hot water there. There were some negative stories because you were using your personal Facebook page or the ward Facebook page to promote a Secretary of State campaign. Talk about what happened, David, and what you did about it. Go ahead.
Well, absolutely. So everybody know, and from before social media started, one of the litmus tests for making sure you separate politics and the service side the litmus test is money. Are you spending any resources or using any of the city's resources to do government activity? And I have never done that and will never do that. So including using any of my workers or anything like that to do any political activity. So my Facebook page, which is called Alderman David Moore. Before I became Alderman, it was candidate David Moore. Then I became Alderman, it was Alderman David Moore. Is not what you call an official government page. It's not official government page because there's no government resources that's used for it. And so just like I would, put something like watch the Ben Dorofsky show, I post that on my Facebook page. But if they would come back and say, hey, you cannot promote that on your Alderman David Moore page, which many of us and other people have done with other things throughout since at least I've been alderman, And even as you go look at people's pages when Biden was running, you can probably pick any elected official, down with Trump, support Biden. And so at the end of the day, it was a warning, and it was just saying because somebody reported me, and it was a warning, and they said, hey, you just got to take the Alderman off of your name. And that's what I did. I just took the Alderman off of my name and put David Moore. So it was a warning.
All right, very good. By the way, if you start promoting the Ben Joravsky Show on your Facebook page, the powers that be, and they'll probably take you off of Facebook. So a word of warning for me on that one. Now you made the reference to Secretary White. I know Jesse White for years. Pretty much everybody who covers politics has known Jesse White for years. And when I think of Secretary of State, follow me on this, David Moore. There's two models. All right. There's the Jesse White model, which is it was the pinnacle of his political career. He was a state rep before this. I believe he was county recorder of deeds at one point, doing this from memory. And he was a lieutenant in George Dunn's 42nd Ward Democratic organization. It's all coming back to me. But the pinnacle of his career was being elected Secretary of State. And he made it clear that he was not using it as a springboard to anything else. Then there's that tradition of people like, and I'm doing it again off the top of my head, Senator Alan Dixon, Jim Edgar. I may be forgetting someone in there. I know Delmarie Cobb will probably correct me when we do the interview that I've forgotten. Who've used it as
Governor Ryan.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't even have to wait. George Ryan. So which category are you in? Are you, David Moore, using this as a springboard like Alan Dixon to become senator someday? Or are you viewing this as the pinnacle of your public service career? Go ahead.
That's a fair question. And for me, it's always been about service. And that's what attracts me to this position. It's what, even in my automatic seat, it's a nonpartisan seat. And I just love serving. So to directly answer your question, I am not looking to benchmark and step off anywhere else. If I got that calling on my life, I would. I tell people, Ben, there's two people I keep my eyes on. I probably shared this on your show before. That's anybody saying they want to be a preacher and anybody saying they want to be a politician. Those are two things you don't run to, you run from it. Because if you're being a preacher, the part you're missing is that the pastoring part. That's where you got to go see the sick at night. That's why you got to go check on people and go to funerals late at night or sit with people and counsel them. And then being an elected official, yeah, it's easy to sit up there and sit in a chair. But what about when Miss Johnson called you late at night? Are you going to take that phone call? Do you have to leave a birthday party to go check on a constituent and all of that? So those are the things. It's that service side that I enjoy. And that's what this is about for me. Being able to serve and serve in a nonpartisan way. And that's what I like about this. So to directly answer your question, if I wanted to run for anything else, if I got the call to do it, I could do that from the automatic seat. Those things are not what I'm looking for.
Yeah. All right. You announced your campaign in Macomb, Illinois, Western Illinois. That's where you attended. I thought that was a really smart stroke. And I talked about that on the show, David. And I'll tell you why. You're a black man from Chicago. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest, okay? That has some advantages and it has some disadvantages when you're running statewide in Illinois. So the first thing, in my humble opinion, that any black man running statewide has to do is show people that he's like a citizen of the state. And Roland Burris is the role model for this in many ways. Well, he first of all, he's from Centralia, so he literally is from downstate. But it's like, oh yeah, that was smart because it sent a message. I'm for the whole state of Illinois. I'm not just representing Chicago. I'm not just representing the 17th Ward. And you may say, oh, bad, but that's unfair. You don't make white people do that. Well, that's our world, David. You know what I'm saying? I hear you. It's unfair, but at the same time, I thought it was a smart move. Get your thoughts on your announcement at Macomb in Western Illinois. Go ahead.
Absolutely, Ben. And what you just said, it sounds good, and people probably think it was that way, but not at all. If it turned out that way, then great. It was because I am a young black person from Chicago, born in the Robert Taylor homes, lived in Inglewood community. And when I was growing up, that's all I knew, Ben. And so it wasn't until I got to Western Illinois University where I learned to work with different people of different races, different backgrounds, different religions, different parties. And at the end of the day, that's why I learned to love Illinois. I always loved Chicago because that's where I was from. But it was in Macomb where I learned to love Illinois. And that's why I went back there, because all of those relationships that I developed in college, from being in student government, from being an RA, I kept those relationships throughout the state over the years. And many of those people are in key positions now. Many of my friends, as a matter of fact, one of my friends' father is a Republican. I think he's a township supervisor in Pekin area. And she's like, oh, my dad wants to meet you. He's a staunch Republican, but the only person he's ever voted for was, as a Democrat, was Jesse White, you know? And so it's those relationships that are important to me, whether it's in East St. Louis, whether it's in Danville, whether it's in Macomb or Peoria. I have those relationships already being. So when you're talking about going downstate is my second home, because I spent a lot of time there, not only in college, but going to their homes and visiting with them during spring break. So I'm comfortable down there.
Well, that's going to be important, obviously, as the campaign unfolds. There are candidates with more money. You know this as well as I do. And so those connections, those downstate connections will help. It will be imperative. We'll be watching that one as it unfolds. Let's move to some Chicago stuff. I really want to talk to you about the DuSable Drive effort that you're making to get the city to rename Lakeshore Drive for DuSable. We talked about this at length on the show. It was a couple weeks ago, analyzing the council debate and the efforts by the Lightfoot administration to how do I summarize what they were all about? I guess just to put your effort on the back burner somewhere and just let it simmer for a while until the stove turns off on its own. That's my interpretation, not David Moore's. I'm curious what David, why don't you go back and talk why, first of all, you would like to see Lakeshore Drive named for DuSable, and what is the status of your efforts to get it renamed? Go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So for me, it all started when I took a boat tour. And on that boat tour, the guide mentioned everybody else, including Al Capone, and never mentioned DuSable. And true story. And so after the tour was over, I asked him, I said, how do you not mention the founding father of Chicago? And he said, who? I said, DuSable. He's like, well, I just probably forgot to say it. I usually say it. Well, that should be the first thing that comes out of your mouth. And then after that, I decided, I said, you know what? Something has to be done in honor of him, a higher honor. And that's Lakeshore Drive came in mind to me. And so when I first introduced it and talked about it, I got, of course, pushback from definitely a lot of people up north, but even some people from out south. Let me be honest, and they were saying about the address changes and things like that, which in some cases makes sense. Okay, I'm not gonna deny that, but there was somebody up north, and I wish I hope I can find that person's email. They said, why don't you just focus on the outer drive, and then therefore he can get the same recognition, and then we don't have to change all these addresses. I don't have to change my license plate, all of this. And I said, okay, that's a good compromise. And therefore, that's what we focused on, was the outer drive from Hollywood to 67th Street. And then I guess what frustrated me then, when I began to hear things like, well, instead of doing the outer drive, this was from other people, both inside the administration and outside, won't you just keep it south of, Roosevelt Road? See, those are buzzwords to me. Or this one, why don't you just rename the Dan Ryan? Wait, what does that mean? These are all the things that I was getting for over a year and a half when I introduced this ordinance. And so we finally got it to committee. And then when it came to committee, they was like, well, we want to have a subject matter hearing on it. Okay, fine. I'm okay with that. Let's have a subject matter hearing on it so everybody's voice can be heard, because I'm a believer of everybody's voice being heard. So we had the subject matter hearing. Then I said, okay, we've had a subject matter hearing. Everybody understands. The cost that they were talking about, oh, that was an issue too, Ben. It's going to be too costly. So when they finally did the cost between what the state has to change and what the city has to do was less than $2 million. And so then I say, okay, now let's bring this to a vote. Well, we'll bring it in April. When April gets here, then it's not on the calendar. I'm like, wait, well, we're going to bring it up in late April, April 29th. Well, that means it's not going to come to city council till May. And so they bring it to April April committee at the end of April. But 3 days before that, the administration comes out with they didn't call it an alternative. They called it a proposal that we think could also best recognize DuSable. And now it was a $40 million proposal. Now, they talking about mine was too expensive. So now they saying $25 million for the DuSable Park and another $15 million for the Riverwalk. We'll rename the Riverwalk after that. And then they threw in, well, we're also thinking about naming the Chicago River after him, but it's in some obscure agency inside the Department of Interior. And so, but we'll see what we can do. Wait, that's a heavier lift, in my opinion, than the outer drive. And so I listened to that and I didn't knock it. I said, that is a good compliment, actually, to the outer drive, because when people are driving from the south, now they can go to the park and now they can go to the Riverwalk. And when people are driving to the north, as they get familiar with him, they can come on down and Hyde Park area and go to the DuSable Museum. And so this way we could connect the entire city. So I didn't argue about that. I would say it was a nice compliment. Then when we get to committee, on the last day, they try to introduce a substitute. I'm like, how are you going to introduce a substitute on my ordinance? And the substitute was supposed to have been the legal description of 67 to Hollywood, which I had asked for almost a month before the meeting, hadn't gotten it. And when they gave the legal description at the hearing, it went all the way to 95th Street on Ewing, something I did not ask for. And it was described as, well, we're doing the legal description the way he wanted it. No. And so that upset me. And so the best way I could describe it, being over a year and a half, they threw everything at me, including the kitchen sink. And then on the day of the hearing, they took the brick out of the corner of the house, let the house fall on me. And while the house was falling on me, they threw the brick at me. And so it was, and so we withstood that. And we got it passed unanimously through committee, and we'll be coming up for a vote in city council at this next week at city council.
So it will be a vote, and they will be renamed. It will be renamed. Correct.
We have the votes. We have the votes to pass it, and if everybody stick to who's going to vote and support it, then it will be renamed.
All right. Well, that's
and again, that's just the outer drive. Everybody who lives on Lakeshore Drive will still have their address. The only addresses that are affected are the 3 to 4 harbors that are on Lakeshore Drive. And are you ready for this one, Ben? So as they're doing this and they're talking about the museums and all of that, the museums are using the incorrect address. All the museums are using the incorrect address. And so all the museums say whatever address, Lakeshore Drive, but it's actually on Museum Way.
Yeah.
They got their own names that there. So when you're doing your navigation, you understand what I'm saying? And you talk about Lakeshore Drive, your navigation drops you off right in the middle of Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah, I know your GPS. Look,
right.
I could do a whole show on street naming, and we have a limited time, so I'm not going to do it. But before your time, now Delmarie is my generation. She knows this, David. After Martin Luther King was killed, they were trying to figure out a way to honor him with a street, but they didn't want the street going into white neighborhoods. David, I am telling you, this is the history of the city of Chicago. So they had to find a street that was long enough to be appropriately commemorative to a man of Dr. King's stature, but not too long that white people drove on it. So I'm sorry, you gotta laugh, David Moore. This city is insane. And then I remember Mayor Rahm and his after he closed the schools and the mental health clinics, he's like, how can I boost my popularity with black people? I know. I'll change Stony Island to Bishop Brazier. Are you kidding? It's the exact opposite of what you're talking about, David. Everybody's going to have to change their address. Right. It's like suddenly, you know, I mean, I'm not ripping on Bishop Brazier. That's not the point. The point is that people didn't want to change their addresses. So what you're doing is a combination. When I followed your story, I thought of both the Bishop Brazier thing and the Dr. Martin Luther King Drive, because on one hand, you're honoring a black man, which is, I don't know, maybe some people are bothered by that in the city of Chicago still.
And there's none there. Before Ida B. Wells, there was nobody black had a street named after them in the Central Business District. And for the founding father not to be recognized in a major way, it's really an insult.
Well, I when they pulled that stunt where they came up with the substitute ordinance, extending it all the way to Ewing, I think they're doing this to kill this bill. And then, this is just a slick move. And then they're like, oh, some error that we were unaware of, you know. But we'll see. We'll see if it passes. So I give you credit for, being determined and having tenacity. All right. Let's see. Well, also in the news today, I could not let you leave this interview without asking your thoughts about the police oversight bill. It's in today's Sun-Times article about it. And according to your colleague, Alderman Irvin from the 28th Ward, the Black Legislative Caucus in the Chicago City Council has decided to join forces with the Progressive Caucus and Latino Caucus and support a bill that I never thought I would see happen in my lifetime. Still not sure I will see happen in my lifetime. That takes away some of the mayoral control over the police department. And they say they have the votes even to override a mayoral veto. We'll see about that. Your thoughts about this issue, David Moore?
Well, my thing is, and so I haven't read that yet because just a couple of days ago, we were still in some debate. So for that to have come out without me knowing about it is interesting because the sticking point for me was and maybe they've resolved that one, is the ability to fire. And I don't mind them having a recommendation to fire, but I do not think they should have the ability to fire. And so that was, I'm in support of this oversight board, but as I told the administration as well, because when this first started under the previous administration, every community meeting that I went to, and I went to all of them, you heard people say, we do not want the politicians to decide this for us. And so these, both GAPA and CPAC, who were on two different opposite ends of the world with their ordinances, all of them were listening to community people, different groups of community people, but they were getting the community people input. And the fact that they finally came together and each of them gave up something to get, close to a very good, what I believe is a very good ordinance, is the one that I want to support, as long as it doesn't have that they can recommend firing, but they should not have the ability to fire. And so
when you say fire, you mean fire the police chief, the superintendent? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
And why don't you believe the Civilian Oversight Board should have the authority to fire a police chief? Go ahead.
And I don't think so, because I believe that whether it's sort of like along the lines of the elected school board thing, which I do believe in a hybrid model, I tell people. But if you got a totally elected school board, guess what happens? The mayor's who's ever mayor, be it you, me, or Delmarie, we're gonna get the blame for it. And I think there's got to be some point of accountability in leadership in terms of where the people when they select and vote for someone. Now, what the oversight board does, though, say, hey, they can say, hey, we don't have a faith in this person, or our vote of confidence is not in this person, and then put the pressure on us as elected officials, because that voice should be rising from the community. And then it should be then rising from us as elected bodies to saying, because if it's coming from our community, I have to be listening to my community. And I have to be saying, Mayor, this person has to go. This person has to go. And when any mayor feels that pressure, whether it's Mayor Lori Lightfoot sitting in that seat or Mayor, anybody sitting in that seat, they have to be able to feel that pressure from the people and not just from an elected body of a group of individuals that would probably put in with some, depending on who got the most money.
All right. Well, I'll put it this way. It would be a boring world if Alderman David Moore and Ben Jarofsky agreed on everything. So we're just going to have to agree to disagree on that elected school board thing. That hybrid model, open window, throw out, in my humble opinion. But I respectfully listen to what you had to say. I get opportunity all the time to vent on my opinion, so I respectfully listen to what you have to say. And I'm really curious what a Mayor Delmarie Cobb would do in that position. That's blowing my mind right there. I'm going to close with this, David, and I've asked every alderman this question when they come on the show. I get a lot of aldermen on this show. What's your attitude about Mayor Lori Lightfoot? And, so much of the stories about her, I don't know her. I mean, I've interviewed her, but I'm not friends with her. I've never socialized with her. I've only dealt with her in the context of being an interviewer, if you follow what I'm saying. I never got in a car like I did with you and drove for 2 hours with her. You know what I'm saying? And so what's your working relationship with her, and what's your opinion of her, Lori Lightfoot?
Absolutely. Mayor Lightfoot, we have a good working relationship. But I tell you this, it was just like with Rom. I tell people, and you've heard this saying before, no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, just permanent interests. And everybody know what my core interest is always go back to, what are you doing for the least of those? If your policy is not stating that, or you're asking me to vote for something that is not helping the least of those, I'm a person that believes in working together with people, regardless. Because if you see how you just said you disagree with me on the school board thing, and you can challenge me and we can agree to disagree. But tomorrow you should be able to call me and say, hey, Alderman, this I need some help here because this street is bad, or I need some help with this development, and I cannot say, well, you wasn't with me on the school board, so I'm not going to help you. In those ways, I want the mayor that I support to be more acceptable in that manner. And so a lot of things are not personal. It's just you agree to disagree and you move on. But I know she has a good heart. I know she has a good heart, and I know she wants to do the right thing. Sometimes it's about, how you do that. And so I'm supportive of her. We've, like this DuSable thing, we disagree on. There's some other things we've disagreed on, but we've had a working and respectable relationship where we can get through it. But I want her to be not only that way with me, but also with many other people as well.
Yeah, all right, very well done. Alderman David Moore, thanks so much for coming on the show. Best of luck to you with your Secretary of State campaign. I got a feeling we'll bring you back as the campaign unfolds. I'll probably bring back some on the other candidates as well. But best of luck to you, all right, David?
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate this opportunity. It's always good seeing you. You got to come back out. We're doing some really good things in the 17th Ward, so you got to come back out and take a drive with me.
I'll take another drive. Looking forward to that. That's Alderman David Moore to the 17th Ward. The legendary Delmarie Cobb's on deck. We're going to take a break, and we're going to bring her on right after this.
And now, the list of things that you can buy at the Chicago Reader store at chicagoreader.com. Things to wear like Chicago Reader hats, t-shirts, bandanas, and face masks. Things for your daily life like the Chicago Reader camping mug, Chicago Reader tote bags, and a Chicago Reader reporter's notebook. Things for you to read like our Reader recipes, the Chicago Reader 420 companion, our Chicago Reader best of book series from journalists Maya Dukmasova, Mike Sula, Ben Jarofsky, and Lior Galil, the Chicago Reader coloring book, and the Chicago Reader stay home puzzle. Find the Chicago Reader store at chicagoreader.com and show your support for the nation's first free weekly newspaper since 1971. Welcome back to the Ben Jarofsky Show, live from his attic.
Yes, indeed. From my attic, I just let the train go by. As long as I've been in front of a microphone, Delmarie Cobb has been a guest on my show. I consider her one of the smartest and most insightful political strategists in the city of Chicago. And I don't just say that because we agree about 99% of things, okay? Like David Moore and I. There's some things that Alderman David Moore said I disagree with. I like David Moore. I think he's a gentleman. But Delmarie Cobb and I pretty much have every conversation. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So welcome back to the show, Delmarie.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Before we take a look at the local issues, let's just start with some national stuff. I know you're dying to talk about this one, and I had a field day with it last week myself. Our dear friend, Delmarie Cobb, and I have a just equal love for Mayor Rahm Emanuel. I can't even get it out, that joke out of my mouth. Mayor Rahm, who's always looking out for Mayor Rahm, is positioning himself to be ambassador. I'm not even certain it's going to happen, although you, Delmarie, put something in my head when we were talking before we went on the air that they got a little plan. There's like, there's a method to this madness with Ambassador Rahm Emanuel. Explain to people what you think their plan is, or that they're following to get him to be the ambassador to Japan.
Well, Rahm Emanuel and those who have worked with him over the years, there's an MO that they use on a regular basis. And I'm fortunate enough to know the MO, and I've been able to take advantage of it to help my clients. But it was said that the announcement for him to be the ambassador to Japan would come later in the month. That it had, so we have a trial balloon that's being floated so we can get the temperature of how this is going over, especially with the progressives. But then we're going to make the announcement later this month. And I figure that means around the holidays when people's attention is somewhere else. And so then it will be a done deal. You come back after the holidays and it's done. And so what can you say about it at that point? And so one of the things I'm doing is writing a column so I can try to get it out before the holidays, because I just want to be on record. I know I've written one already before, but I can't write it enough, because obviously there's a group of people out there who are advocating for Rahm Emanuel to give him a second life, to allow him to reinvent himself and to come out smelling like a rose after all the things that he did to the city of Chicago and specifically the Black community.
Yeah. And I do, when I was listening to you about the people who advocate for him, explain this to me. Why the love for Rahm by so many people in the Democratic establishment? I've never understood this. He's not like a likable human being, so I don't believe any of them actually like him. You know what I mean? Like David Moore is a very likable guy. I told you I spent 2 hours with him, or 3 hours, whatever it was, in the car. We had a great time, you know? And there are people you don't always agree with on every issue that are likable, and you would, you know what I mean? You want to help them. But Rahm Emanuel is not a likable human being. So what is it that drives and motivates people in the establishment wing of the Democratic Party to promote him?
I think it's just that he's been loyal to them specifically. And I don't say he's been loyal to the Democratic Party or principles of the Democratic Party, because he hasn't been necessarily loyal to the principles, because I consider him a closeted Republican. Like so many of our other mayors in the city of Chicago have been closeted Republicans, and somehow we allow them to get elected. But he has been loyal in terms of he will do their dirty work. He doesn't mind being the bulldog or the pit bull. And so that's what they want. They want good cop, bad cop. He doesn't mind being the bad cop. And so we're going to reward him for that. It's a role he embraces, he cherishes, and he does a good job at it.
You know, Delmarie, you were a strategist for Hillary Clinton, so you know the Clintons a lot better than I do. Have you ever had a moment where you just shared with Hillary Clinton your feelings about Rahm? Because, you know, he worked. If it wasn't for Bill Clinton, Rahm wouldn't be Rahm. He pretty much owes, in my humble opinion, he owes his career to Bill Clinton. And I could go on and on about how Rahm emulates Bill Clinton. He tries to. Bill Clinton's the master, the maestro, and Rahm tries sometimes to play that game, and he can't quite do it. Have you ever shared your feelings with the Clintons about Rahm?
No, what I did do is I wrote a column years ago, and Congressman Danny Davis and I both asked President Bill Clinton to stay out of local politics, out of Chicago politics. I think when he was endorsing Rahm Emanuel. But in terms of Hillary Clinton, I say that one of the reasons I was selected to be her press secretary for Illinois in 2016 is because I have been so vocal against Rahm Emanuel.
Whoa, that's some political jujitsu that I didn't think of. I remember when Hillary was trying to distance herself from Rahm. You're right. But in 2016, ladies and gentlemen, just going, Rahm was a pariah. That was the height of the Laquan McDonald scandal, where it was pretty obvious that he had concealed evidence of a murder. How he is still, by the way, a regular on the George Stephanopoulos show, Delmarie Cobb, how he is still considered an enlightened pundit, and how he's considered a respectable candidate to be ambassador to Japan, one of the leading countries of the world, with this case of potentially concealing evidence of a murder, I will never understand. But yes, in 2016, that was very much the case. And so I see what you're telling me is that Hillary was very smart. She said, you know what? I'm going to distance myself from Rahm by hiring Delmarie Cobb. Is that correct?
And what better way to do
Yes.
it than somebody who has been as vocal against Rahm Emanuel as they come. And I have not hidden, not for 1 second, what I think about Rahm Emanuel. And so I say that was one of the reasons I was chosen to be her press secretary, because if you remember, she came out and said we needed a consent decree after Lisa Madigan had said it first, and was talking about having a monitor, if necessary, federal monitor, and Rahm Emanuel dismissed Lisa Madigan. And immediately Hillary Clinton came out and said, no, it's a good idea. And the moment she said that, Rahm Emanuel changed his tune.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting how that played out? By the way, when you talked about Danny K. Davis appealing to Bill Clinton, I just had this thought. Danny K. Davis is from Arkansas originally. I don't know if you know that, but he's from Arkansas. Yeah. Bill Clinton's from Arkansas. Bill Clinton, this is the maestro, this is the master. I'm sure while he denied, he got involved anyway in local politics, but he probably did it in such a way that won over Danny. Oh, Danny, I know your daddy. You know how Clinton would do that?
Well, what's interesting, I was doing Bobby Rush's campaign for Congress in 1992. And I always say that none of my candidates ever became the nominee for president because I was supporting Jerry Brown in 1992. And Bobby Rush was supporting Bill Clinton. And I was trying to figure out, why are all these people supporting Bill Clinton? Because my remembrance of Bill Clinton was the 1988 Democratic Convention, where I was press secretary for Jesse Jackson, and he did this speech that went on forever. And so that was not a very good impression that was left with me. And I was like, why? And I actually lived in California, so I knew Jerry Brown because I lived in Los Angeles from 1976 to 1978. And so I couldn't figure it out. And then I started asking everybody, why are you supporting Bill Clinton? And everyone I asked was a resident, had been born in Arkansas. All of them have been born in Arkansas. Yeah. Danny Davis, Bobby Rush, John H. Johnson. You just go down the list. I was in shock.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious! And Robert, you could add the Shaw brothers to that list. I think they're from Robert Shaw, from Arkansas too. That Arkansas connection.
And Bill Clinton knew that, and had over the years he had groomed all those people over the years from 88 to 92. Met with them and pull together that Arkansas cabal.
No, I listen. We could do a whole show on Bill Clinton. I'm going to resist the temptation to go down the road, but I will say this: I went through this whole thing. I've turned against Bill Clinton. I've met you and I have discussed this. I've turned against him. I feel his behavior over the last 20 years is just inexcusable. Having said that, I must confess, I was under his spell. I'm not going to lie and make it. I am not even from Arkansas. Okay, my father's from Arkansas, but I'm not from Arkansas. And so I got no excuse like Danny K. Davis does. But I remember 92 so well. The presidential debate, Jerry Brown went hard at Hillary Clinton for some conflicts of interest in her law firm. I remember the debate. I think it was in Chicago. And then Bill Clinton, I knew Delmarie, what a master he was, because you can say nasty things about me, but don't say anything about my wife. And I'm like, oh my God. Is anybody in America actually falling for this? I'm defending my wife. As if Hillary Clinton wasn't in herself, a grown-up human being with her own professional issue. You follow what I'm saying, Delmarie?
Right.
Like she was this feeble little woman at home who needed to defense a big bill. Anyway, Clinton slick. And he got, you know what? It worked, Delmarie, Cobb.
Exactly, it did.
It did work. Jerry Brown's campaign, I don't think ever recovered from that. You and I were the only two people for Jerry Brown. Oh, that's embarrassing. All right, we've already mentioned Bobby Rush and Danny Davis, so let's talk congressional maps. The story broke. I think my old pal Greg Hines wrote it for Cranes. Give a shout out to Greg. He doesn't know anything about TIFs, but he did a good job on this story about the congressional map. And it looks as though the Democrats are trying to concoct some congressional maps dealing with the loss of population, Delmarie Cobb, that would minimize Republican advantages and maximize Democratic advantages. But that puts Bobby Rush and Danny K. Davis in a potentially precarious situation because the black populations in their congressional districts will fall. What's your general thoughts about what the Democrats' strategy seems to be with the congressional maps?
Well, the party in power is going to do what it needs to do to maintain the power. And so I'm not surprised by any of it. I think that, I've been talking about this forever in terms of the number of black people leaving the city of Chicago and Illinois and how it was going to have devastating effects on our representation. And I don't think I still don't think people are focused on it in terms of what it's going to mean for aldermen, what it's going to mean for state legislators, and what it's going to mean for congressional races. It really is going to impact, and we've done nothing as a state to curtail the number of African Americans leaving the city of Chicago. And when you were talking about earlier about the TIFs, I mean, that's a prime example of spending money where it's not needed, spending money to gentrify communities. In other words, to attract white people while you throw out black people. You get them out of here as fast as you can and hope that you get enough white people to replace their numbers. I mean, that was Rahm Emanuel's strategy, and that's one of the things I hold against him.
Yeah, it was Daley's strategy as well, by the
Exactly.
way. Let's not let him off the hook. But you're absolutely correct.
But at least he knew how to play us.
Yeah, he did. It took him a while, though. He stumbled out of the gates, right?
But
in 1989, he stumbled out of the gates. I personally, I saw according to Greg's story, Bobby Rush would emerge with I think the black population of his district would be a little more than 50%. And of course, things are changing all the time. So by the time of the election, who knows? And then you get it, like the percentages of people who actually vote. I have a hard time, having said all that, seeing Bobby Rush lose. Again, a congressional primary goes to the person who has a plurality of the votes. You don't need a majority. There's no runoffs in the state of Illinois. So all Bobby Rush to advance to the Democratic, to get the Democratic nomination, which is the key to victory, needs is a plurality of votes. And Delmarie, I just have a hard time seeing voters in Chicago reject Bobby Rush. And I think part of this, I said this to you earlier, but I think it's things like the movie that just came out about Fred Hampton, Judas, and the Black Messiah. And there is a character playing a young Bobby Rush with the glasses and everything. And I'm just like, it's emboldened, it's emblazoned in people's minds that at a crucial time, a critical moment in history, 1969, when the federal government was going after the Black Panthers, Bobby Rush had the guts to stand up. I just think Bobby Rush has changed over the years. He endorsed Bill Daley. You know, I'm not saying he walks on water, but I'm just saying that image is burned into people's brains, and I think it'll be very hard to defeat him. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, as I said earlier, I did Bobby Rush's campaign for Congress in 1992, and we were worried about the Black Panther connection. I mean, I saw it as a not something to run from necessarily, because I thought it was a good thing being an activist and being a warrior for other African Americans. But there were many people who are part of the establishment who were worried. You know, is this going to come back and haunt him? Can he run from that? It's one thing to be an alderman, it's another to be a congressman. And we were able to run a campaign against an incumbent. The incumbent was Charlie Hayes. And there were many people many people in the Black community who were against Bobby running against Charlie Hayes at that time. There were Black people who were part of the establishment who wouldn't speak to him, stop speaking to him, because the plan was that Eugene Sawyer, would run for the seat after Charlie Hayes stepped down. And Bobby threw a wrench in the plan.
Oh, yeah. Well, that, by the way, that was a short-sighted plan, because Eugene Sawyer was so on the outs by 1992. He couldn't even get elected to committeeman of the 6th Ward. I remember this. I wrote a story about it at the time. God, I've been doing this a long time, Delmarie.
You and me both.
Yeah. I remember the committeeman race of 1992. That's a cry for help. So yeah, that's a lot of politicians have a lot of ambitions, but that was a long shot. Yeah. So Bobby Rush surprised a lot of people by being Charlie Hayes in 92. I think that reputation will help him. That legacy will help him. What about Danny K. Davis, in your opinion? What about his legacy and his reputation and his ability to survive a change in the congressional map?
Well, we see he's done well. He's beat all of his opponents overwhelmingly. And people don't remember this, a lot of people, but, you know, he ran against Cardis Collins 3 times, and had she not stepped down, he'd still be running against her losing. You know, I mean, that's how powerful she was. And he's just as powerful. He's seen as just as powerful, mainly because he has remained relevant. I mean, you see Danny everywhere, and he's talking about issues all the time. Now, you know, how effective he is, that, you know, that's another story in terms, and I can't speak to whether he is or isn't, but I know that he's constantly bringing attention to issues, and that's part of being an effective elected official.
I sent you an article that I wanted you to read. It was your homework assignment. I don't know if you had an opportunity to read the story, but this is on my mind. I would love to get your reaction to it. So I'll just summarize it if you didn't get a chance to read it. The two gubernatorial candidates who want to get the Republican nomination to run against J.B. Pritzker. That would be State Senator Darren Bailey and businessman Gary Rabin, have been urging Governor Pritzker not to accept any of the federal relief money that would go to pay $300 a week to people who are unemployed, because it's a disincentive, they say. It makes people lazy. It's a disincentive for people to work. And my instinctive reaction when I hear this, Delmarie, I was saying this to David Moore before you came on, it just reminds me of the rhetoric I heard from Ronald Reagan in 1980 about welfare queens driving Cadillacs and taking their food stamps and buying liquor. And it's just like, I'm like, how... Will I just live the rest of my life having to deal with this kind of rhetoric in my country? By the way, I just want to point out again that Darren Bailey is a big farmer, has a farm downstate, and he takes federal subsidies to help him deal with the vicissitudes in the farm prices. So just saying, what's your reaction when you hear Republicans running on a platform of, I don't know, so heartlessness and calling for cuts? What's your reaction to that?
Delmarie?
Yeah, there she is. Delmarie,
Hi, I don't know what happened. No, it just popped off.
Yeah, but so I was saying your reaction when you hear Republicans urging Governor Pritzker not to take the money, so because it is a disincentive to work. What's your reaction?
Well, the moment I heard that during the period where COVID eased up and people started going back to work and the economy started opening up, and all of a sudden you heard Republicans talking about people, it was a disincentive to go to work. And my reaction was the same as yours. I'm like, oh my God, the only people who think like that are Republicans. I said, nobody's thinking like that. And I just find it the most incredible rationale. You can't find a worker. And so the reason you can't find a worker, whoever that worker is, black, white, man, woman, is because they're sitting on the couch collecting $300 a week. And so I'd much rather do this than go out here and work. I mean, it goes against everything that we believe in as a society in terms of dignity in work. People want to work. People don't want to sit at home and do nothing and be lazy. If anything, it might allow them to be a little bit more selective. They may not have to take a Walmart job. They may not have to clean floors. They may be able to wait for another job that they're more qualified for. But they're certainly not collecting $300 and sitting on the couch.
Yeah, it seems like a strange platform the Republicans to run on. Every response to the pandemic has been so twisted, because I just look at these guys. Darren Bailey, for one, the state senator. I don't know if you're familiar with him, the state senator from downstate middle of the state of Illinois. First of all, said that he didn't think the pandemic was real. Right. It was a hoax. Then he said he was against any of Governor Pritzker's programs or requirements to wear masks or have safe distancing protocols. That he said that he sued because he said that was a totalitarian overreach by a dictator. And so now that the pandemic is, we're finally emerging from the pandemic, he's against any kind of relief to help people who have been hurt because we closed the economy. He opposed closing the economy on the grounds that it was going to hurt people. Now he's against helping the people that closing the economy hurt. I mean, this dude is just, no matter what the position is on the pandemic, he's got the wrong take on it. And this seems to be what's driving the Republican Party.
And actually, if you listen to the things you just ticked off, the litany of things that he's done during this pandemic, who sounds like the crazy person here?
It's true.
He does. I mean, yeah. I mean, you're not even taking into consideration the impact that this has had on people's lives in terms of their families and taking and finding people who can help you take care of your families and being sure that, I mean, how do you go out and get a job we've already heard how women have been impacted by the pandemic, leaving the workforce because we're the caretakers. We've had to take care of our children. We've had to take care of our parents. We've had to take care of everybody. And so all of those things, if you take into consideration, you don't open the economy and suddenly you switch a light and everything goes back the way it was. It's going to take time for the economy to get back up and running the way it was in 2020 and 2019. And so instead of coming up with policies that are considerate of what people are going through, and clearly he isn't, I mean, why would you want anybody like him to be the governor when he absolutely has shown no empathy whatsoever or the ability to empathize with other people?
Yeah, I think it's a hard sell, to put it mildly, and it's another indication, in my humble opinion, the Republican Party has completely lost its way. That these are the front runners for the Republican ticket. All right, for the Republican nomination. Delmarie will close with a little local stuff. I know you follow very carefully the debate over police oversight, the machinations in City Hall. We talked about it a little bit with Alderman David Moore. What's your thoughts about the possibility that the city council may approve, over the threat of a mayoral veto, an oversight committee that would have the authority to hire and fire police superintendents?
Well, as you know, GAPA was one of my clients, and I worked on this for a couple of years with them. And so I am so happy that both GAPA and CPAC found their way to come together and compromise and offer up a compromise ordinance that addresses police oversight, because this should have been done already. I mean, the mayor, Lori Lightfoot, said it would be done within the first 100 days of her administration. And here we are in year 2. And even at that, she's still offering up her own ordinance versus accepting the ones that these people have worked on for years. And when you talk about meeting in the community and community meetings, both GAPA and CPAC have had multiple over the years of community meetings. And so the things that they're proposing have risen from the ground up. These are grassroots suggestions and recommendations. They're not grass tops. And so I completely agree with them. And again, the ability to hire and fire the police superintendent will be a part of a referendum that will go up for a vote. And if the people don't want it, then they will reject it. Yeah. And I think that should be the process.
That's well put. Yes, that there would be a referendum on this proposal. If the people want mayoral control, they can get it. I'm not certain, by the way, and I blame you for this bit of skepticism that I'm about to opine. I'm not certain that they will ultimately, the aldermen, have the votes to override a mayoral veto. I read the same articles that you do, ladies and gentlemen, where Jason Irvin, the alderman of the 28th Ward, is saying, the Black Legislative Caucus, the City Council has joined forces with the Progressive Caucus and the Latino Caucus, and they have the votes. Delmarie Cobb, I've been watching aldermen peel away from these bold initiatives with a phone call from the mayor or the mayor's office many, many times. And I am not certain that when push comes to shove, the votes will be there to pass this over a mayoral veto. What's your prediction?
Well, I'm with you, Ben. I have actually been in the middle of them where we went to bed with the votes and woke up without them. So I know that these calls are being made in the middle of the night because I've seen it happen. And I scratch my head. I'm like, how does that happen? And so all you have to do is look at what happened when the city council, especially the Black Caucus, wanted to hold off taking a vote on the cannabis bill. And I mean, if the Black elected officials don't support that, can't stick together for that, then what are they going to stick together for? And so, no, I'm just as skeptical as you are, and I will believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
Now, I
always
hope I see it,
Yes.
but I will believe it when I see it.
I'm with you 100%. And let me just say, it was Delmarie. In my defense, folks, if you say, "Oh, Ben, you're so cynical," it was Delmarie. Blame her. She was the one who put it in my head. She goes, "Oh, Ben," and they go, they're gonna back away. And I go, "You know what? I think she's right." All right, Delmarie Cobb, thank you so much for taking the time, as you always do, whenever I ask to come on my show. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you real soon. All right.
And thank you.
All right, that's great. Delmarie Cobb, political strategist from the city of Chicago. Always fun talking politics with Delmarie. And of course, before her, Alderman David Moore, candidate for Secretary of State. Haven't talked to David in a while. It's a pleasure to talk to David. So it's a lot of political talk for you junkies out there today. And there'll be more tomorrow. We just keep shoving the political talk at you junkies. You're welcome. You're welcome. And I also want to thank the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois, without whom this show would be possible. And as Delmarie Cobb, Alderman David Moore, and State Senator Darren D.B. Bailey will tell you, back home in Alton, they call him Dr. D. Give yourself a raise, take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
And remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows, Benny J bonus interviews, and so much more. ChicagoReader.com/Joravsky and wherever else you download podcasts. You can send us an email, BennyJShow@gmail.com. You can reach us on social media at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show. And you can call this program. It's true. We have a phone number, 708-658-4788. 708-658-4788. Leave us a voicemail.
Don't believe me? Springtime.